Good morning, Malta and Gozo. We're here in Strasbourg together with European Parliament President Roberta Metsola.
Good morning.
Bonjour, Roberta.
Bonjour.
Moments before we started this recording, you looked at me and told me, oh, it's you again, since we met on Sunday evening. You as the President and European Parliament itself are very accessible to journalists when compared to Maltese institutions. But what about access to information and protection of journalists within the member states?
That is what we have been pushing for in this Parliament to break. Across the European Union, we have seen a backsliding of protection of journalists. We have seen journalists coming to us, how can I feel more protected? How can it be that a country does so much to enter the EU, to convince the European Union institutions that everything is okay, then you enter, and the reality is not that. We are seeing it across the board in most, I would not say all, I will say most European Union countries. The Media Freedom Act is there to set, let's say, a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons, I call it, a very English expression, which means that you have a system, a very heavy system, in some countries heavier than others, which places politicians much further away from who is asking the questions. When we are elected, we tell the citizens, ask us what you want. Because when we come back for the next election, we need to be able to say, have we done what you asked us to do? If we don't answer those questions, then we're not doing our job. And our message throughout the negotiations of the Media Freedom Act is to make sure that all governments, all elected representatives at all levels have to be accountable to those persons who elected them.
The upcoming European Media Freedom Act is one thing. The attitude of certain governments towards journalists is another one. So how to bring about change in attitudes, be it in Malta or in certain other EU countries?
Yeah, absolutely. I see a big difference, of course, between some countries and another. I'm very much open to talking to all journalists, and I'm also open to answer all questions. It's not only pre-prepared, it's not only nice questions, but also critical, hard, tough ones, when sometimes you don't know the answer to. And my appeal on Sunday was precisely that. Let's open all systems up. Let's be able to be transparent about sometimes how difficult some decisions are. Some systems are inherited. Some issues are very difficult to resolve. What I would urge, and this is what I will be doing in the European Parliament, but next week I go to Spain and Latvia, this week I go to Poland, is precisely that message. Let journalists ask their questions, be ready to answer them. After all, that is our role, that is our responsibility, but also in a world, especially after the pandemic and now during this war, where misinformation and propaganda has to be countered, where narrative which is not true sometimes just goes faster than the speed of light, and there is no possibility for the so-called traditional journalists to be able to push back against that false narrative. Let us not, as politicians, as government leaders, as opposition leaders, as anyone with a political responsibility, allow that to happen any longer in our European Union.
The most pressing issue for EU citizens as we speak is the high increase in consumer prices, groceries, utility bills, you name it. Has the Parliament listened, and what are the immediate steps to tackle this?
We have a debate actually in the next few hours on how to pay the bills. That is a question that our citizens are asking us. They don't want big words, they don't want big titles, they want to know how they can pay their bills so that at the end of the month they can go to the next one. The next few months will be extremely challenging everywhere. That is why also today's debate and proposals from the European Commission, which we look forward to having a proper discussion, and I mean proper, at the European Council later this week, as to what we mean by a price cap, what we mean by helping citizens, what we mean by really injecting funds into the markets to help businesses that have already been so hit by the pandemic, but are today also being hit by stratospheric energy prices. We need to be able to, first of all, decide on that, and we need to be able to also communicate on that. We learned that during the pandemic, and the one shining light in all this is that the unity that we have seen so far at European level has been very much welcomed by our citizens, because they say this cannot be solved at our level, especially if you come from a country that is not an industrial giant, that is not economically very much developed as others. They want the European Union to give the answers. I'm proud also to say that the European Parliament has also risen steadily in its visibility, its effectiveness, and in the realization of our citizens, and this is important for us as we work towards the 2024 elections, that we are there to deliver quickly, pragmatically and tangibly results that perhaps could not be possible at a national level.
Roberta, thank you very much for your time and for this talk.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching.